So how do I actually make cloud infrastructure and cloud computing interesting to investors and people who want to add some form of cloud service to their portfolio? Well, there's only really one way that I could probably do that. And I think I need to make and explain it to the point where you can kind of relate it to something that you already know. So the best way for me to do that is to go back to the start. And by go back to the start, I mean go back to before we had all this cloud infrastructure and what it meant for tech companies. So before we had all this cloud infrastructure, when you wanted to make a tech startup or build a tech company, you had to, essentially before you knew if it was going to make any money, you had to buy all of the equipment. And the kind of other main aspect of that is you had to buy all the equipment and you had to guess how many people were going to use your service. And when you guess that amount, that is your limit until you update or upgrade. So let's say that you had a machine that could deal with 1,000 users, and that's a server that can deal with 1,000 users at a time. And then suddenly you had 2,000 users. So you actually have to buy another server and wait for that server to arrive, install the server, deploy your application, and then you can host 2,000 people. Or what if you didn't have 1,000 people? What if you only had 50? Then you're stuck with this server that is designed to serve 1,000 people that you've paid for up front, and the application or whatever you've deployed doesn't work. No one wants to use it, and you're stuck with this server that you can't actually use. So to give you a kind of metaphor to relate this to, think of cloud services or cloud services as real estate. When you're looking to buy a house, you have to pay that big upfront cost, which is your deposit. And then if you can't get a loan, you actually have to just buy the house outright. It was the same with tech companies in the early 2000s and before. If they actually wanted to start, they had to have that big upfront cost at the front. So when cloud services started to appear and pop up, what it actually was is that some companies would buy the infrastructure for you. So essentially they would buy these massive warehouses with massive computers that you could rent. So rather than buy, you rent, and you pay a premium, but you don't pay as much upfront, which is the same as investing in real estate. Someone buys the house and you rent it off them. Now the person who buys the house may charge you more for the rent than what their mortgage is or what they have to pay on the house. And that's how cloud services make money. Cloud services essentially offer tech companies and startups the flexibility and the freedom to pay less upfront and scale very quickly, where they can outsource most of their resources to another company. All they have to do is focus on the service that they offer. So they save themselves a lot of time, a lot of heartache, and a lot of trying to scale up and down. Because with cloud services, you can rent based on what you use. So if you don't use that much, you don't pay that much. If you use a lot, you pay a lot. And that's why it's so profitable. Now that the technical part is over, and if I still have your attention, which I will be really surprised if I do at this stage, then we will actually get into the main chunk of this video, where I want to have a look at a few different cloud service providers that you can buy on the stock market, and I will kind of go through different kind of price ranges and look at their market share. By quite a big amount, Amazon is ahead, sitting at 33%. Next you have Microsoft with Azure at 18%. Then you have Google Cloud at 9%, and Alibaba, which is doing quite well at 6% if I'm honest, and IBM, which is at 5%. Now, I don't actually know the other two. You have Salesforce and Tenet Cloud. As I say, I don't know them. But you also have Oracle Cloud. So Oracle is also quite a well-known company. Now, when you're actually trying to pick a cloud service provider to invest in, there's a few factors related to the business, and then there's another factor which is more related to the cost of the share. So when you're looking at a cloud service provider, you really want to have a look at the regions that it offers. Now, they might actually have different names, but regions just means how many warehouses they have spread all over the world. So the more regions that it offers, the more likely it is going to be a popular service for developers and tech startups, because the less distance there is between the warehouse and the customers, the better it is for developers. So if it has more regions, then it is more likely to be selected by tech companies. The next point is costs. And cost is probably a really important thing when it comes to cloud services, because there are a lot of them. And there are a lot of small little costs that add up. Now, if you're an investor, more costs and a higher quality service is typically a good thing. But for like tech startups, usually more cost is kind of not really that good. So you have to try and find this balance point between what would a developer want and what would investors want. So if you're actually looking into these companies, then think of it from what someone who would want to buy it would be. Another point would be security. Security is probably one of the kind of main points that also sells, because if it's an unsecure cloud service provider, which most of them aren't, and especially these ones, these won't be like unsecured ones. Although I don't really know about Alibaba because it's a Chinese-based company, and I know like their laws are different and the data laws are different. Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on how the data laws are different, but that is also something you can have a look into if you want to buy Alibaba. And the last one you probably want to have a look into is just how many services it offers, because if it offers more services that are specialized, then it can be a bit more appealing. That's why Amazon Web Services is very popular, because it's quite low cost, it has quite a lot of regions all over the world, and it has, I think, over 100 services. Now, Microsoft Azure, I think, is catching up, and Google Cloud is actually doing really well as well. So yeah, have a look at services that it offers and have a look at how many services it offers. Now, they all kind of have the same services or the same base services. It's more in the details and those kind of specialized services. But yeah, if you're going to invest in these companies, it probably helps to kind of know where they price around. And I'll have a look at a few of them. I'll have a look at Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, Google, and Alibaba, IBM, and Oracle. So that it kind of gives you an idea on how much it would cost you to buy them. First up, we have Amazon. Amazon is, I think, the most expensive one of all the companies that I've just shown. And well, it's a tech titan, and it's one of the biggest companies in the world, so that is kind of to be expected. But $3,152 a share, if you're a small investor, is not really accessible. But it is by far the biggest of all the cloud service providers by quite a bit, and it does offer quite a lot of services. So even if its cloud services wasn't to make money, it still has things like Amazon Store. It has, I think at this stage I don't even know what it does anymore. It just, yeah, pretty much controls the world. So yeah, it is the biggest and an option for you if you have a large chunk of cheddar, as we would say. Next, you have Microsoft with Azure. Now, this is a little bit more kind of reasonably priced for those smaller investors like myself, but it's still relatively expensive. But same again, most of the companies who have cloud services don't just have cloud services. Now, the cloud services for Amazon, from what I've learned, is that it uses cloud services quite a lot, pretty much as its cash cow or its cash engine. It just makes a lot of money off that to fuel taking over the world. And I think possibly it could be the same for Microsoft, but Microsoft has quite a lot of other very profitable services, like their operating systems, and well, it's Microsoft. Next, you have Google. So Google is another massive company, Well, this isn't even Google. This is Alphabet Inc., which is Google's parent company. And, well, as I was saying, yeah, it's just very expensive for a kind of intro investor. So if you're just trying to get into it, it's not like you're going to go and blow $3,000 or $1,800 in your first investment in a cloud service provider if like you don't really know much about them. So what I would really recommend is, even after this video, and in fact especially after this video, pick one that's kind of relatively affordable to you, and then research it, see if there's any other options, because there's a lot more cloud service providers than the ones that I just showed you there. A lot of people know Google, and Google is a very big company and it has quite good earnings, and yeah, it's Google. Next, you have Alibaba. Alibaba is the Chinese-based one, which is, it's got kind of that advantage that it's a Chinese-based company, for the fact that if companies want to do and provide services in China, then using Alibaba is probably quite a good bet. I think the only kind of main concern at the moment is because we're in January of 2021 and the CEO of Alibaba just disappeared. So yeah, if you can get over that fact and the fact that it's $243 a share, then yeah, might be a good option for you. Something to look into if you also want to expand into the Chinese market. Then we actually start to get in the kind of more reasonably priced ones anyway, at least. You have IBM. IBM seems to get quite a hard time, but I think it mainly focuses nowadays on cloud services and kind of what it offers within the cloud. So you've got things like artificial intelligence, machine learning, and just basic cloud services. So this actually might be quite a good option. For some reason, it seems to be kind of on this descent, or it was on a descent from, if we actually have a look at its max, yeah, it's been on kind of a descent since April 2012. Now, I don't actually know what happened in April 2012. It might have been April 2013. But yeah, it still seems to be quite a good company, I think. Anyway, its earnings per share are still pretty good, and it gives a dividend of like 5%, which is quite impressive, especially for tech companies. Tech companies don't really give out dividends. But I'm only going to explain one more, and then this video will be over because I think it's kind of dragging on a bit. But yeah, let's get into the next. So probably the cheapest and most kind of realistic price for someone who's looking to start investing in cloud services is Oracle. Oracle is another kind of tech company and infrastructure company, and yeah, I don't really know how to explain it. It offers quite a lot of courses on cloud, so if you do want to learn a bit more about it, in fact, all of them, I think, well, I know Oracle and AWS actually offer an introductory course to cloud services. Now, you don't need to do it to actually use cloud services. You can actually do it to learn a bit more about it, because it's quite an interesting subject. I don't want to go into too much details because it's quite a lot of information, and it would, yeah, if it's something you're really interested in and want to do, then yeah, go have a look at it. AWS Cloud and Oracle Cloud. You can do a quick course on it. In fact, Oracle, in kind of the start of the lockdown, or the Corona lockdown, was offering the kind of introductory course for free, which is a pretty good deal, I think. But yeah, I think that is actually kind of coming to the end of the video. If you are interested more in about cloud services, then I'll do another video at some point and I'll go into a bit more detail. But there's actually quite a lot of really good resources on YouTube, so you can go have a look, and I'm sure you'll find a really good video that explains it a lot better than I did, and it will have really pretty pictures. That was quite a lot of information, and I hope I made it even semi-entertaining for you. And if you did enjoy the video, if you really could do me the favour and like the video, and if you do like the content, and you can have a look at my other content as well, please consider subscribing to the channel. But thank you very much for watching, and you have a fantastic day. See you later.